Hello and welcome to the Break It Down Brown Daily Breakdown Show. I'm your host, Jamar Brown. And on the show, we take everyday life issues, topics, and subjects, and we break them down in order to find the deeper meaning behind the things that take place in our lives each and every single day. And just remember, we are not trying to change your opinion, just your perspective. And today I want to break down the following three words: reject, tolerate, celebrate. Once again, reject, tolerate, celebrate. And the reason why I want to break down those three words is because I want you to think about situations in your life, whether they be in relationships that you have with your family or with your friends, with coworkers and various business interactions, or just with somebody you happen to be sitting next to at a local bar. And here's a scenario I want you to really get centered on. And that scenario is that they say something that you disagree with. Right? You have a completely different perspective or an idea or value than they do about this topic that was brought up. And I know we can all think very clearly about many scenarios like that have happened throughout our entire lives. And what happens initially, for the most part, is that we reject their idea. We reject their perspective, or we even reject them. And in severe cases, that rejection becomes so serious that it can even lead to arguments as well as fisticuffs in certain situations. And so we all know that we've been in that situation where we just literally reject someone's thoughts, ideas, perspective, or even them as a person. Well, over the years, we have become a more civilized society. And instead of just flat out rejecting people, the idea of tolerance has come into play, which I think is a major step forward because, in general, you are at least having a cordial interaction with someone that you may completely disagree with, and we call that tolerance. The challenge with tolerance is that it's one of those situations in which we smile to the person's face, we have a cordial interaction, but both parties walk away with the exact same thoughts, ideas, perspectives, and opinions they had before the interaction. In other words, we don't listen to each other. We are there just to be nice to each other and then to walk away without any change in our perspectives and our ideas, our opinions. The good thing about that is that, it was an amicable interaction. It was more friendly. People smiled, but there was no internal change and there was no internal shift. And we can all relate to being in that situation, as well as having a sense of tolerance for other people's ideas, perspectives, or even them as a person. But here's what I want us to consider today on the Break It Down Brown Show. There's a third level, and that's called celebrate, in which we listen to somebody else's opinion or perspective, and we celebrate it, we honor it, we learn from it. And the reason why we do that is because it allows us to really take a deep dive into someone else's life, someone else's perspective, someone else's thought process. And it's not so that we can adopt or adapt to what they're thinking or to let down our values and our beliefs and things like that to assimilate to their side of the aisle. It has nothing to do with that. What it allows you to do is to uncover the deeper meaning behind life, to uncover the deeper meaning behind other people's lives and perspectives, because they may provide a perspective that you have never even considered that could absolutely change your life. And the same goes for them. They may hear something from you or learn your perspective about something that can completely change their life and their perspective and their world. The problem, though, is that oftentimes, and it's really evident when you watch different news channels, when they just debate and debate and debate, and they're talking heads, and people get on there, and it's all about, let me get out my talking points. Let me just try to yell at you and scream at you to get my words out. But I really don't care, and I'm not even going to tolerate what the other person is saying. And I think it's a shame, and I think it's a travesty in today's world, because it's teaching our young people and teaching society that we should move away from even tolerating other people and go back to flat out rejection, which I think is going in the wrong direction. And so in the Break It Down Brown Show today, let's talk about the significance of moving from rejection to tolerate and ultimately to celebrate. And here's a scenario I want you to think about. Years ago, my father used to have people over to our house, and they were just different personality types. There were poets, musicians, educators. He had a really diverse group of friends. And they would come over and they would have these discussions on a Friday or Saturday night. And the adults would sit around and have these discussions. And sometimes those discussions led to arguments and debates and heated discussions. And other times they were very cordial and friendly. But my father was always the most quiet person in the room. Even though everybody else around him was talking and yelling and screaming and debating and having these spirited discussions. And so one day I asked my father, I said, you're the organizer of all these people, and these are all your friends and acquaintances, and you invite them over to your house. Why are you so quiet? Why don't you ever talk? Why don't you talk more? Why don't you engage? Why don't you dive into the discussion? Why don't you debate? And he said, son, let me explain something to you that you may not really understand right now, but later on in life, it will make perfect sense to you. And he said this, the reason why I'm like that is because I learned years ago that you can only learn when you listen. You can only learn when you listen. If you're so busy, caught up in your own thoughts and ideas and perspectives, and you just want to talk, you are not learning. Because if you were able to learn, you might hear a perspective, or you might hear a comment, or you might hear something that could completely change your life. But you cannot learn if you are not listening. And, here we are 20, 30 years later, and that has become a major part of my life. And that is just listening to people. Because when you listen to somebody, you can celebrate them. So let me give you 3 things you can do to get back to this idea of celebrating people so that you can learn from others, learn from their perspectives, learn from their thoughts, learn from their ideas, and it'll add a different perspective in your life, and it just might change your life in a very positive way, and you just might change somebody else's life in a very positive way. So here are 3 ways that you can do that. The first thing that we can do is to be curious about their perspective. Move away from, let me get my thoughts and my perspective and my belief out there, and have an initial thought of whoever I'm in front of, I want to be insanely curious about their perspective, about their values, about their life, about why they think how they think and why they do what they do. And it's not to be judgmental. You are curious and you are learning. So the first thing is to be curious about their perspective. The second thing is the idea of being thankful, being appreciative, being grateful. And so what I want us to think about is to be thankful that you are learning a new perspective. Now, how does that idea of being thankful change our demeanor when we're in front of someone? What it does is it allows us to relax and to smile and to feel good about ourselves because we are thankful that we are interacting with them. We are present. We are making eye contact. We are listening. We are even taking notes if that is what you would like to do, which I often do when I'm talking to somebody. I take notes. And here's what happens. It diffuses any tension, any drama, any angst in the relationship because it lets them know that you value them. You value their perspective and opinion. I'm not saying you have to agree, and I'm not saying you have to adopt the way they think. What I'm saying is just learn from them because it just might change something in your life. So be thankful for learning a new perspective. The third thing, which is counter to what we see on cable television and these various news shows, is don't try to change their opinion. Just offer a different perspective. Once again, don't try to change their opinion. Just offer a different perspective. But only offer that perspective after you have done steps 1 and 2. Step 1, you are curious about their perspective. You are there to learn. Step 2, you are thankful for their perspective and their ideas and what they're talking about. And so you diffuse any tension and angst because you are in a sense of gratitude for the experience of learning from someone else. And then the third thing is don't try to change their opinion. Don't debate. Don't argue. Just offer a different perspective. Offer your perspective. And if you take the lead, I guarantee that the other person you're talking to will reciprocate for the most part, the exact same way. Some people aren't going to get it, right? Some people, they're just so caught up in their opinions and their drama and their this and that. And that's okay because everybody's different and you can learn from them as well, right? But for the most part, the vast majority of people that you do interact with, if you move from this idea of rejection and toleration to celebrating them by number one, being curious about their perspective, by number two, being thankful for their perspective, and number three, not trying to change their opinion, just their perspective, you would be amazed at what you can learn, how you can grow, and how you can change the life of others just as you are changing your own life. And there are countless stories I can share with you about situations in my life and how I've applied these concepts and things that I've learned and experiences that I've had that I would not have learned, I would not have had. I would not have been a writer of 3 books and a sales manual. I would not be doing this Break It Down Brown show. I would not have been successful in corporate America as a salesperson of the year and sales manager of the year if I had not applied these concepts, because it works in business just as well as it works in our personal lives. Think about from a sales perspective. If a customer says something to you that you completely disagree with, our initial thought is to reject and to debate. And what I'm saying is move away from that. Go to a perspective of celebrating their perspective, because you are learning how they think. You are learning how they operate. And once you learn how they think and how they operate, then you could do an incredible job of connecting with them, because they know you're not there just to debate and argue with them. You're there to learn and to grow, and that will allow them to get more comfortable with you, share their thoughts and perspectives, and then you share your thoughts and perspectives, and lo and behold, they become more receptive to you. And so, as we wrap up this daily breakdown, what I want you to think about is move from rejection and tolerating people to celebrating people with these 3 steps. Be curious about their perspective. Be thankful for learning a new perspective. And then don't try to change their perspective. Don't try to change their opinion. Just change their perspective. And I want to thank you for breaking it down with me today on the Break It Down Brown Daily Breakdown Show. Please visit JamarBrown.com. That's JamarBrown.com. And also feel free to call me at 949-371-9077. Have a great day.